Hello, hi, welcome to HydraBlend Technologies. Today I want to just undo some of the edits that I've had in my previous videos, and I want to go back and explore the Reconnaissance engine on Kali Linux. And hopefully I don't get as much network delay as I had previously. So I'm going to go ahead and run Recon engine. Okay, so Recon engine, going back, is a tool developed by Landmaster53. His name is Tim Tomes. He developed this as a part of Black Hills InfoSec security. So this tool allows basically, it allows red team hackers to obtain information about a company without touching their assets. So they're able to query through open source API, open source data, whether it be search engines or other forms of open API data that is available, like in the internet, to obtain information, as much information about a company as possible, without having to touch their services. As in, you're not going to go ahead and try to ping their firewall or anything like that. So okay, so the first command on Recon engine is something that is nice for developers. Okay, so developers are able to debug the tool very explicitly and work on the tool as they please. So our Recon engine is basically a program written in Python, and is available in Kali Linux and other pen testing distributions. I prefer Kali Linux over all of them. It's much easier to work with. I've worked with LionSec Linux, I worked with Parrot OS, a whole bunch of other systems. And fundamentally, they're really tools and software. So technically, you can run them on any operating system, including Windows and also Mac OS. But I prefer Kali Linux over those operational systems for pen testing because of the simplicity of the design of the operational system itself, and also has all the settings to give you root privileges on the machine and simplifies all applications. As long as you don't install or limit the installation of applications on your machine outside of the base repository, it's a very stable system. But it's also very that's the best way to make the system secure, because you don't want to when you're doing pen testing, you don't want security on your system, because you're going to be generating backdoors. You're going to be you want to have an open firewall to work on red team operations, because you want to have available connections coming in and out of your machine. So that's basically the reason. And while you can run the same tools on Windows, like removing a firewall and antivirus system on Windows is pretty risky, because you're very vulnerable, because there's so many third-party services running on Windows to communicate back and forth between Microsoft and your endpoint, because Windows has active checks on their own operating systems. So there's a whole bunch of network activity going on behind your back that you may not be aware of. So that's one of the reasons why I prefer Kali Linux over other distros when it comes to penetration testing. So I'm going to go ahead and conduct a netstat, and you'll see that there's a very limited amount of ports that are open on your local host, not connected to any foreign address. You see, like foreign address, this is a default routing address, etc. So there's nothing too concerning here. There's very limited network activity going on the base operational of the system. If you run the same command on Windows, you're going to see a huge difference. So as you can see, when I'm connected to the internet, you have a whole bunch of ports listening, and some may even be like connected third party. But this also can be browser based, you know. So if you close all your browsers, maybe not. But there's a whole bunch of ports that are running, including SMB, uh, and you know, port sharing for NTFS file sharing system of Windows. So there's some defaults running on Windows that are vulnerable, typically on pen testing, you know, systems. Like you don't want, sometimes you don't want that kind of stuff. And you actually, I should rephrase, you absolutely don't want any other ports open on your machine other than the ones that you're working on explicitly. So that's one of the reasons why this makes a very good pen testing distribution. Okay, going into reconnaissance, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of global settings that it can be applied on your external reconnaissance. One of which you'll see a name server, which is the DNS. The DNS points to a default Google DNS server. You have a proxy setting. You have the number of threads to run asynchronous operations. This can boost performance if you increase the number of threads. Keep in mind there's 2 threads per CPU. On usually, if you're working with standard-based operational systems, there's usually 2 threads per core. So like, you know, the current value, I think maximum is 10, so it allows basically most computers 4 cores, 5 cores, right? So the other thing is, if you want to, now there's exceptions to that rule where there's certain processors that allow multiple threads per core. Usually processors using Spark for Sun Microsystems Unix environment, which I have a server. I have a Sun Microsystem Unix server. It allows you to access, you know, you have multiple threads per core. It gives you much more, you know, cores per process as well. So that's the advantage. But it also uses a lot of legacy systems. Some of the, you know, high-end technologies of Sun Microsystem, Oracle, in Unix environment, they allow, they're for huge data. They have like processors that are worth like $2 million. You know, they're big stuff. Anyway, going back to what we have, reconnaissance, the developer settings that you can use to debug the tool is called verbosity. So you can change verbosity to different levels to debug the tool as you wish. So okay, so debug verbosity, you can set verbosity level to 2 for debug. So and the command to go about it, options, set verbosity to, we'll set the verbosity to 2. But I'm gonna go ahead and change it back to 1 because I don't want too many green letters appearing on my screen when I run the tool. Okay, so but like for example, I actually contributed to some of the bug fixes on this tool, which includes, like, you know, some of the modules breaking because Python for Kali Linux upgraded from 3.8 to 3.9, which broke some of the dependencies on this Python tool. So, you know, there's continuous support for this tool per update of the system as well. So you can very much get involved in that project. And the default location of Recon-ng, you can, I believe it's, yeah, so there's a dot in front of recon-ng. That's the default location from your, I believe, your profile. So you can always go into that location the squiggly line /dot recon engine. That'll take you to Recon engine, the location of Recon engine. So if you navigate into the directories, you can navigate into modules, for example. And let's go into exploitation. Okay, so you have, just to show you, so as you can see, you see some of the Python scripts, the Python files that are located in that directory. You can just import this directory in Visual Studio, and or anything you use like VS Code. I typically use VS Code, but you can use any Python IDE, and just build a project and work on the project from there. And you can you can debug the issues as you see fit. So if you want to get into like the base skill required for this tool is basically knowing how to program in Python, understanding some of the frameworks that are used here, and making HTTP calls and fetching API data from third-party services. So that's basically the skill sets you require to contribute to this tool. You probably acquired those skills, which is pretty useful for Python, I guess, for base level Python development fundamentals, I guess. Okay, so let's go into this command, workspaces list. So basically, workspaces list, you can insert this command, and you're going to get all the workspaces that you've created on your project, which shows all your previous scans that you have conducted on Python, on Recon engine. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new project, and just give you an idea, a rundown of how Recon engine works. So I'm going to remove a so if anytime you're unsure of a command, you can always go into just type the command in without finishing. And you get the list of options to run. You have the options create, list, or load. And I'm looking for remove. So as you can see, this is a very database-like, you know. If I go back to workspaces list, you'll see that the test workspace has been deleted. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new test. Okay. So there you go. Now I've created a test workspace. And you're going to see like a whole bunch of errors pop up. If you have modules without a valid API key, you're going to get these errors saying that some of your modules will not function because you do not have the right dependencies or the right keys added. And these are the the errors you can try to resolve to modify your modules and make your modules useful by fixing them independently. So you can do some extra work into fine-tuning your Recon engine reconnaissance tool. And the more fine-tuned your tool is, the more better data that you can acquire from this tool. And the data that you can acquire from this tool is very powerful. Okay, so now we're going to go into command modules. Well, before I go that, let's go to let's show the keys list for okay. I think the command is keys list. Okay. So okay, now these when you type in keys list, these are like a list of API keys that are required for the module to work. Some of the API keys are expensive. All the ones that I put out here are free, that I've created personally. You don't want to use other people's API keys in this module because it allows other people to monitor what you're doing because you're using their keys. These keys are stored into their cloud services within each one of these services, and they're able to monitor and map uh, exactly who's using their keys, and they can get the requests made, and they can track what other people are doing if you take those keys. Like if you use my Google API key, for example, I can go on Google, go into my app and API key and find out who's been using it. So you don't want to use other people's API keys, and also it's conflicting. You what you should do here is create your own list of keys, and you can go into some of the Recon-ng tutorials to figure out how to get those keys. So each one of it is a monotonous task and it takes some time to build these keys, but it is worth it because you also get some insight on how to work with third-party API services. So I guess it's a useful skill to build. I don't know, and also becoming familiar with third-party data. Okay, so keys list. Okay, so the next command is modules under space search. That command might be different for different versions of this tool, but for me it's modules search. For someone else it might be modules list. It might be something else. So modules search gives me a list of modules that I have available in Reconnaissance. So all these modules allow me to collect third-party data in my reconnaissance scan. So each module is unique. And what the module does is that primarily the user will enter some information that they already know about the company. It might be a domain information, it might be employees that they know of, it might be anything that they already know about the company. You would initially manually put in that data. What this tool would do, modules tool, it will try to resolve other information from a contained from the information you already put in. So for example, if you have a list of companies, this module can try to resolve the companies to contacts. So if you place in a list of companies, they will try to resolve basically people, past employees, their email addresses, or anything related using a Bing LinkedIn search catch. So they would use different kind of tools to initiate this query to find information. If you have this tool would try to resolve companies to contacts, and you have a whole bunch of list of modules that would do this. So you have a domains to company, domains to domain, etc., etc. And some of the APIs, depending the quality of your APIs, some of the APIs are very expensive, but it may be good. I haven't tried it, but if you want to have the full power of this tool available to you, it's the better quality APIs you have, the better you understand this tool, the better your information will be. They even have domains to contacts from WikiLeaks, a whole bunch of information. You can even try to resolve contacts to credentials or domains to credentials. Credentials are pretty much passwords that were previously used in the company, or any kind of leaks that ever happened that was thrown out into the internet as open source data. You can find those information. There's a whole bunch of ways you can go about getting information from this tool. It might even use a census query. You can see third-party social media. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look into one of the modules. I'm going to particularly go after domains to domains. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and use the command show. And show will allow you to basically take a look into all the columns, all the data that is available for you to collect. So these are basically databases, well, tables inside a database. So you have companies, contacts, credentials, domains, hosts, leaks, location, netbox, ports, profiles, push pins, repositories, vulnerabilities. All this information that you can collect will now be stored into a local DB file, which is accessible from Microsoft Access, and also you can open it up in Excel or SQLite, which is a built-in tool in Kali Linux as well. So I'll show briefly how that can be done. So if I go to show domains, for example, show domains is a command that will return all the data that I have collected in domains. I don't have any data, but from a prior knowledge, I may know certain domains that I know about a company. And let's just say I'm doing a recon on Bank of America, for example. Just for demo purposes, it could be any company that you're familiar with. You can start from there. So I type in the command db. So db allows me to delete, insert, node, query, help. And anytime in the module that you're unaware of what command you have option available to use, you can always type in help. And it'll give you all the list of commands that is available to you from your particular directory that you're working from. Okay, so right now I'm going to go ahead and type in db insert domain. So I'm going to insert some information that I already know from the company that I want to do reconnaissance for. So I'm going to insert a domain for a company, Bank of America, for example, bankofamerica.com. Okay, this is a domain of Bank of America, bankofamerica.com. I can add some notes if I would like, or you can skip it. And one row was updated. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run that command again because I'm familiar with another domain of Bank of America. And I'm going to type in bofa.com. Enter. And I uploaded another row. Okay. Now I'm going to paste that module that I previously copied, and I want to run that module. So what this module do is it resolves other domains from a list of domains. So if you already have a list of domains, you can try to resolve other domains of the same structure. So the command is module load the module name. Okay. Okay, so I missed the S in there, so it's modules with the plural, with the S at the end. Modules load the module. Now your as you can see, your index has changed to brute suffix. So this is the module that has been loaded onto Recon-ng, and you can go ahead and type that help command again if you like, and you see the list of options. But when you're inside a module, I'll go ahead and type in options list. Options list will tell me the settings for that module, and you can see that the settings, for example, source and suffixes, current value, default, required, yes. These are the parameters of the module. You can adjust those parameters if you like, if you would like to make the tool work a certain way. Now, what you notice here is that there's a options list called suffixes, and what suffixes are pretty much, these are a list of uh, words that are appended to the end of a text, or end of a letter, or end of a word, basically. So suffixes, we know what suffixes are, we know what prefixes are, right? So basically, you get an insight for how the tool works. Basically, the current value of suffixes is located in a text file called suffixes.txt. It's required, and it says path to public suffix wordlist. So what this command does is it tries to resolve domains from other domains through a brute force suffix search, right? And the suffixes that are used are located in a text file. So what this does is that it looks for words, or like if it looks for domains with a extension other than like .com, it might use .ca or something like that. But there's a path to the word list that you can search for, that gives you a list of suffixes that are available. And underlying the underlying tool, you can see you can try to figure out the algorithm behind the tool. You may have some insight of maybe how the algorithm works based on some knowledge in software development, and as you look into the tool, you'll be able to figure out exactly what's going on. So, okay, so I'm gonna open up the suffix, and you'll see it starts with letters, 3com, blogs. It looks for all these kind of extensions that can be appended to a domain, and it creates a search query to see if that domain exists. And if that domain exists, then it will be appended to your domains. So it uses a brute force search. So underlying this module runs an algorithm that uses this text file to search other domains. Now, ideally, if you want to modify it, you can create your own text file and adjust the settings, and you can make it work a way that you choose fit. You might be interested in domains associated to certain extension. It might be like .uk, .ca, like some sort of .us, something of context that would work better for this tool to work better. I don't know, for the context of the company or scheme. So okay, but let's say I run the defaults. My last step to use this tool is to go hit the run button, and you'll see a whole bunch of things is going on here. So it's doing a brute force search to find domains, and it's actually running a lot faster on my laptop screen than the TeamViewer screen because of the network delays and stuff. Doing a thorough reconnaissance takes some time. It may take overnight. Depending on how thorough you are with your information. Now, you may find that your modules, your reconnaissance module, they work better under certain settings, and you may decide to adjust those settings ahead of time before running the tool. And I'll show people how you can actually script this tool and have it run overnight while you go to sleep. Ideally, in some cases, this tool works well in servers, rather than manually being precise in inputting the variables and try to find the information. Unless you want to, now that's if you want to do like a brute force reconnaissance, and you want to automate the reconnaissance. But if you want to be fine-tuned, you want to make the tool work a certain way for your adjustment, there's many ways to make the tool work. Previously, in one of my Red Dragon security videos, I showed how I was able to, during the 2016 election, I basically recorded a video of how I can collect tweets located inside or taken inside the White House and who it was posted by, and I can actively run the tool to update every 5 minutes, 5 seconds, and I can get live feed update for what's happening in the area that I put in, the location that I put in a 5 mile radius. So I collect all the information, all the tweets, all the social media network pictures taken in that area actively every 5 seconds if I wish, or whatever time frame within that region, and I get to see that data live. So it's very crazy how you can use this tool. It's like basically when you see those movies like Enemy of State or those old CIA trying to monitor you kind of thing, like, you know, people feel like they're being stalked or they're being watched all the time. You know, they're monitoring all your network traffic and stuff like that. These are some of the things that have been made from like, hey, that's just completely absurd, to like, wait a minute, this might be possible, and it is available for people to use. That kind of information to some degree exists. You can do that, and it's scary. So once the module runs, you'll see that 250 new domains have been found, and I have a total of 252 domains. So if I go ahead and go to run the command show domains, you'll see all these domains that were collected from Bank of America and BOFA. So these might be other servers, other domains in other countries. Some of them could be fake domains, but you have all that information collected. You root search domains to domains. Okay. Now you can go through the modules, and when you get more domains, you can take those domains and resolve more information somewhere else. You could do domains to companies, domains to contacts, and then you could do a search for company to contacts. You can do various modules, and running that over and over again will take some time. So so right now I want to show how you can automate this process. If I can just get a grip on this terminal, it would be great. So still a little slow, but okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna open up my documents. I'm gonna open up this script. So basically, once you have all your settings in place and you have all your API keys, you might want to do one reconnaissance on your own to use all the modules effectively, and then find a pattern to decide which modules you have to use in sequence to get the best scan out of your personal preferences or your personal scan type, whatever it is. And you might load them into sequence so you get the best information from your scans. So I went ahead and did that, and basically you just write the command to load the module and run the module, load the module, run the module, and you create a whole text file to run all these scans in sequence. And if I want to automate it, all I have to do is copy the text file, contents of the text file. Now go ahead and right click on my terminal. I'll just paste those commands in, and there we go. It's just going to run every single command step by step, and I go to sleep. And this will probably take some time. It might even run overnight, because the amount of data you can collect. Okay. But I'm going to stop it right there. I'm actually going to close this out right now, because I already have done this. And I'm just showing this for demo purposes. So now the thing is, the reason why I'm developing HydraBlend technology, one of the modules being external reconnaissance, is because I see the power in this tool. I've used it quite a bit. But one of the problems with the modern world right now is just that in order to make these tools efficient, you need to apply a lot of personal skills and talent into this tool, which requires one person to have vast amounts of knowledge, vast amounts of information. If you've ever done a site, like if you ever get into cybersecurity, you might start out with certificates. You might do, you might try to learn the trade of computers from the ground up, and you might even put your own knowledge in, try to learn from your own books and stuff like that. But fundamentally, if you take like an educational course, if you complete a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of information. They basically teach you everything from IT, business, administration, network engineering, security, etc., project management, CISSP, security, pen testing, everything, all the details, all the gritty work from the ground up, from computer operational systems all the way to software development. And it's software development is a deep topic because they get deep into data structures, cryptography. Like I'm doing a master's degree in cybersecurity analysis. They even have classes in quantum computing, cybersecurity with artificial intelligence, cryptography, information assurance, big deal. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, data forensics, deep stuff in computer software. Data structures is a big one, big class in algorithms, and even learning from C programming, PowerShell, Bash scripting. You learn MIPS assembly language, starting from there. And you can imagine going from these kind of stuff to all the way up to like quantum assembly. Like it's pretty deep. So the more you know, the more you're able to do. But at the same time, it's a lot of knowledge for one person to handle. So in order for cybersecurity red team operations to survive in the modern world, we have to adopt this into a new structure foundation and turn it into an organization that can allow vast users to incorporate their knowledge and put together like a team environment of open source researchers, or else red team operations are most likely not going to survive, at least not for the average user. And that's the whole idea. If you ever research or watch documentaries about like these old school hackers and stuff like that, I mean the whole reason for it is like it started out as a means to get even with the corporate world, the government. It has a huge history, and that's what I'm trying to bring back. It's like the world of hacking to hackers, a world of cybersecurity analysts to, personally as an individual, not driven by corporations. I mean, like, why the hell do you want to sit there learning cybersecurity in a lab environment, doing this stupid shit in a lab simulated environment, which is like completely downgraded to a level which is not even possible, not even feasible to a real world hack. So that's the whole idea. Now, once you finish your reconnaissance scan, go ahead and you can CD into. Okay, so you go into your reconnaissance module. You can work your way into moving into the workspaces, and you can go into the workspace that you created to collect your scan. So I created a test. Okay, list the contents of the directory, and you see a data.db file. Okay, so this data.db file is the database collected for your scan, and is accessible on Microsoft Access. And but for Kali Linux has a built-in SQLite database. You can actually take a look into your database file on a SQLite program. So go ahead and you can copy the contents of this data.db file to your documents. I like to do that just to showcase in this video. hope I get this command correct, because I won't have to fix it after I mess it up. So CP is copy, and you can copy data.db into your documents. And if that command fails, what it will do is rename your file. Oh, okay. Damn it. So so go ahead and remove, if you use that command, I can go ahead and remove it as well. So remove documents, and what you want to do is actually ls into documents. And I'm not going to be able to do it from here. I'm trying to find the exact path. There we go. That will work. Okay. Okay. So cp data.db. Okay, so I have basically copied the database file over to my documents directory. Okay? So we have persisted, we have a copy of the database file. We didn't remove the database file from its original location. Okay, so we have the data.db file. You can go ahead and actually open up SQLite. And I apologize because as I'm running this video and I'm running TeamViewer, it's pretty slow for some reason. Although I have very high bandwidth wireless connection, it seems to be the application. So maybe because I'm using it free, so it's probably not giving me like maximum bandwidth. So you can go ahead and open up SQLite database. Okay. So what you want to do in SQLite now. This lag is a pain in the ass, I'm not gonna lie to you. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and open import database from SQL file. Or actually open database. I'm gonna go open database, not from SQL file, because it's might be a creation script. They might be expecting like a creation script. Okay, so you open the database open database, open a new database from a file. You want to use the data.db, and you'll see that your data.db file was imported. And I think I went into files and open database. This option right here, open database, not import, open database. Okay. So you see that basically your tables have been uploaded into SQLite, and you can query through your database in here, and you can even run queries, your own SQL queries, etc. You can find all your information here. And I actually apologize because I'm actually well, these are the domains that were collected. So because I ran the test and I haven't done the full reconnaissance scans, we don't have all the information from all the tables in here. But if I were to run it, if I were to take my previous scan and upload it, you'll see all the data contained in this database structure. So you have a list of, you have the data for companies, contacts, credentials. You can run SQL queries as you see fit. From names. and you can even like whatever you like. So you can query through your reconnaissance scan as you see fits, and you'll be able to basically filter information the way you see fit. You can combine tables together, you can join them, whatever you need to do on SQL. You can go ahead and run it on SQLite to compile your data the way you see fit once you've collected the recon scans. So this is fundamentally like, the things that you would have to organize in your own projects, in your own environment, in your own Kali Linux box to organize your data and make it useful to yourself as a pen tester. Now this right here, and you might even want to you might try to archive this stuff in some way. It's tedious, and this is the reason why I wanted to build HydraBlend Technologies, because HydraBlend Technologies are not going to archive these scans, these kind of research that you can do on Kali Linux, but also create an integrated development environment where a whole bunch of people can come together, utilize these tools, and create analytics, and potentially create a AI data-driven solution to cybersecurity challenges. And HydraBlend Technologies, is an open tool for any usage. Like, it doesn't matter if you're in red team operations or blue team operations, it will be valuable to you because it incorporates user security, user data security. You give access to people for the data that you want them to use, and if depending on some level of subscription, maybe I don't know exactly how I'm gonna do it. Maybe I'm gonna allow some features free, and I will give users the options to enhance those features as they see fit. Like, if you're an organization, you don't want your data that you collect from your internal pen test or your internal security audits to be leaked to other people. So the way you would like to use it is to secure that data to make sure that those kind of things don't get leaked. And at the same time, you want to have an archive of that data, so you have year by year reports or every 6-month report, blah 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 blah. And this is where I'm getting into. It can be used in various ways, but the tools are the same basically. Okay. So I don't want to exit out of this. Yeah. So next, what I want to do is I'm going to show how to extract CSV files from this database. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the table, right-click on a table like companies, and I'm going to say export as a CSV file. Make sure to go ahead and Control A to select all the values in tables. Make sure this line is checked, saying column names in first line. So what this will do is it's going to extract all your table data into CSV files, and you can go ahead and save that data as exported CSV files. Okay. Once you export it, you just take the directory and you open it, and it will automatically extract those CSV files in that location. Okay, so it's this thing's. So whichever directory you are, you just open it, and it will extract those scans over. Blah blah blah. And I have done this already, so that's why I have information in this folder, and you'll see these data, etc. This is okay. So you can I guess I can modify my viewer. And if you see the modified view, you see the date it was modified or the time it was modified. So you have like in so you have like a timeline of where, you know, these files, what time these files were uploaded. You can see it was done recently. Okay, so you have all these CSV files now. Now the next step is, what do I do with these scans, and how do I interact to make it work with HydraBlend technology? I'm gonna remove this previous zip file. I'm gonna go delete that. Okay, so I'm gonna copy all objects, right click, and I don't know, if you want to be fancy and use the zip utility on the command line, you go ahead and type that command in, but you can also just right click, compress, name the archive test.zip. Always use that zip extension to zip it for HydraBlend technology. I have not tested the unzip functionality for tar or 7Z, but I will eventually go ahead and update it so it can support those as well. But for now, just it has been tested for zip files. So you're gonna go ahead and copy all these CSV files and compress it into a zip file. And this is the zip file that you can upload in our HydraBlend technology to archive the data. If I go into the zip file, you'll notice that as soon as I click the zip folder, you will see inside you have the CSV files. HydraBlend, I haven't developed HydraBlend technology to allow folder structures to be placed inside. Like if you put the files inside a folder and compress the folder, most likely not going to work. It's going to fail to upload the files, because I have not made it in a way where it can drill into directories. So we're expecting the data to be contained, all the CSV files to be contained inside the zip, and not inside a folder inside the zip. You get what I'm saying? So this is basically the zip file that you can extract from Recon-ng to incorporate into HydraBlend Technologies archive. So I'm gonna go ahead and close out of TeamViewer, and let's go back into HydraBlend. Now, going back into some of the issues that I fixed. By the way, this is all my development. This is a .NET Core service. You can go back into the previous videos and see more information of how I've developed so far. But this is basically another update video, and I'm going into, like, I've done a lot of SQL work, creating SP logic to modify data. This is all Oracle. I created a whole bunch of functions. You can see, I don't know if 1,000 lines or whatever. A lot of functions were created to dynamically generate queries to support filtering, sorting data, and retrieving data from the Oracle database instance. And the creation script, the DDL, to generate all the tables created in HydraBlend technology. So you'll see that I created some tables for information workflow, security access, user groups, security groups, and security workflow, in order to secure the data by group relation. So security group relation to secure workflow access to the data. So a lot of that will be driven by the internal queries that's going to go ahead and back end compile the data and allow only access to data that you're allowed to be access to. So that's some of the things going on here. So I'm gonna go and actually run from the top and like just showcase some of the bugs that were fixed from the previous video, and how I can just have smooth archive data. This is a Java API project, also purely developed by me. Every single one of this pain in the ass projects compiled, I developed all of this from scratch. So I've explained how MongoDB instance dynamically generate the UI data. I'm going to go ahead and delete this job. I'm going to go ahead and to have a smooth line, I'm going to go into my FTPS service and I'm going to go ahead and delete all these files. Actually, I'm going to delete the directory. I'm going to go to Oracle SQL and I'm going to go ahead and delete all the information contained in the table so we can start from scratch. Okay, all the data has been deleted from the database. I'm going to run this from scratch now. Just so we get a smooth idea. It's the Angular application. Okay, we have a live instance running. So let's go into a full demo, successful demo. Okay, I have a Facebook authentication, and I mentioned this before. For some reason, my authentication was not demoable from the last video, so let's try it again. I'm gonna go ahead and log into Facebook. Okay, we have access there. Log into Facebook. It's going to take me to a, oh, what's this? I think it might be because of incognito. Oh wow. Okay, so I believe when I went into incognito, Facebook is giving me this issue, and this is why I didn't log me in before. So so I'm gonna have to adjust those settings in Facebook itself in order to fix it. So I'm not expecting that to work. But for when I'm not in incognito, there's probably some sort of catch that Facebook has used prior to my testing environment that allows me to log in through here. So I'm already logged into Facebook. So let's see. So I can go ahead and log into this application. And I am already automatically logged in. The application supports persistence, so I can tab in, try to go in, and we'll see it does this pretty well. It can maintain the session. The session for the SSO is also maintained by a second token that I developed personally on a cryptography layer. So this is working on a personal cryptography that I developed using AES encryption scheme to create tokens, and also encrypt the token on a second layer on the UI. So this, I explained this on a primary video long time ago, how that encryption works and why it's secure. But feel free to try to break it. Kudos to you if you can. But going into HydraBlend, we have the social profile. There's a social media aspect to it. It's cool because it updates. So I like the way it does that actually. So right, so this Angular stuff. So all this stuff is dynamically generated from database. MongoDB contains all the information for all this stuff. Introduction, links, video tag, and all the YouTube videos in the carousel. All these things are dynamically generated by the database. All this information dynamically created from MongoDB. The analytics portion as well. All these charts can be dynamically updated. So just as you see me typing on the keyboard and it changes on the UI, same thing can be done from this chart. So if I update the data on these charts, it will dynamically update. So I can run active, like if I call this like, change, like what, accounts, purchases, sessions, I'll call it test 1, test 2, test 3. Let's go into the chart object, the data sets, and go into the data, and you see the list of arrays. Change it to like 120. Change this to like 400. I don't know. Let's just update this whole thing now. So I update that, and I'm gonna just take a note of this data right here. I'm gonna go. There we go. I go back, and you see this change dynamically. So everything is dynamically changeable. So I can make a live running process that can update the data live, and you'll see the changes on screen without having to refresh or nothing. It's just going to keep running. So that's the beauty of the Angular style. Very flexible. So going into my data table, as you can see, I have no data currently. My data is empty. Okay, so what I would like to do is I would create a task to upload data. So upload new task, and you can see the form pops up, and I mentioned how this form works. You have instructions on your right hand tab saying how to insert this data, and it is important going forward because there's a lot of relations that can be created if we input the data correctly, which is find the company full stock market name on Google search. If I did a recon for Bank of America, it's Bank of America Corp. Market is New York Stock Exchange. Stock code is BAC. Click today's date, and it will automatically fill for you. Find the recon scan. Because I did this scan before, I'm going to go ahead and import this zip file. I'm going to okay, so just give it some sort of name to give it some detail, and go ahead and upload. Just want to make sure that things are running right. So I'm going to go ahead and upload the task. And it's going to take some time because there's and then finally, once the upload is finished, you're going to see the task appear on screen. And you see that, the task ID is created, BOA recon scan. You have details. Once I finish this page, you're going to be able to click through this, see a whole bunch of detail for the scan, even errors that were generated during the progress of the scan. So what happened in the back end was a workflow request was created with all the field objects that you imported, and the status of the workflow was queued. And there's a time submitted stat and everything like that. So okay, so you have a workflow that was uploaded, and also if you notice the FTPS service, I'm going to go ahead and refresh. There's a new folder created. The folder created is correlated with the workflow ID that was generated from the front end workflow. A task ID is created, so that workflow ID is correlated to the folder structure that is created here. And you see that all your CSV files has been uploaded into this FTPS server. Okay, so your scans are now archived into an FTPS server, and we're good here. So we see that the FTPS service is filtered by like a directory structure. It goes by client ID, module ID, and workflow ID. So the relation makes sense. So one user, which is my client, has a client ID. They have a whole list of folders that contain the individual modules. So this goes by module ID. And underneath the module is the workflow ID. So the workflow associated to a job. They're all archived between databases, and the folder structure also mimics that. And then we have all these CSV files that were imported as a part of that workflow ID. Okay. So now what happens next? So you have this progress bar, you have the status, you have everything going for you in here. Then the next step here is to process this data. This typically takes about 6 minutes when I run the scan, but I'll go ahead and remove the breakpoints. And basically this processor is going to pick up the file, each individual CSV file, and start processing in the back end, and is going to upload the data into Oracle SQL and creating all the permissions, the default permissions, etc. For these to access these files. So okay. So going in, you should. So you have the workflow. Workflow was picked up, and this workflow will now be processed. I'm gonna go ahead and continue to let it run. This process usually takes about 6 minutes, but you'll see the progress update. As you can see, when the job is picked up, the status changed to information, and you see the progress bar run as it completes. So depending on the size of the file, some files are going to take a lot longer. And on average, when I run this without running this video, it take between 6 minutes to 7 minutes, 6 to 7 minutes to complete this particular scan, this particular workflow process. So throughout those 6 minutes, you're going to see the progress bar change. And some of the files will take longer to process than others, depending on the size of the file. Okay. If I go into the workflow, you're going to see that, so we have, if an error was caught, like they would generate a list of files that failed and a list of errors that were generated. Currently is on 35.7%. Okay. Let's see how long the program ran for. It ran for almost 2 minutes. And this part takes some time. Alright. But while this is going on, I guess I can go back to my modules and show the potential for other kind of data that can be collected. And if I go back to the front page, you see all these modules that I'm working on. But because of the the amount of development that is required, which is a whole lot of work for one module. I'm currently working on the other modules as well, but it's going to take some time. I'm the only developer working on this project, and it's a hell of a amount of work. But I'm gonna put in time every single day to put some effort into it to see what kind of service I can come up with altogether. So I believe it might be taking a little bit longer than previously because of the amount of process that's this video is consuming, and might be possible. Try to close out some things, but we can see the CPU utilization. The process, I believe, is running a little bit slower. And my CPU utilization is quite extensive. Yeah, and majority of it is actually taken by the recorder, so that's really what it is. So maybe I'm expecting it to take a little bit longer than 6 minutes, but hopefully it will get done. And let's take a look, so we can have a really good smooth video. But other than that, it's quite resource consuming. It's a resource consuming work. What I should really do is once I have a significant chunk developed, primarily a lot of things on the UI I don't change because there's so much work on the back end. It's quite a bit of work. So that's why having all the back end functionality set. So we saw the progress bar just move. To have all the back end functionality set really gives the structure of what can be done on the front end. So that's the reason why it's taking some time. Because I have to create all the stored procedures to edit the data from the vast amount of data collected, and I'm really taking time to make this one tool work very well, because like in my opinion, there's a whole bunch of software out there, like there's some with GUIs, there's some with licensing and all this kind of stuff, but simplicity works best. In my opinion, I mean, like, how valuable is a tool like Burpee Suite? For example, is it Burpee Suite or is it that other tool, Maltego? Sorry, not Burp Suite. Burp Suite still useful in some sense. I mean, you can conduct some sort of analysis. I mean, you can rewrite HTTP requests filtering via proxy, and then you can try to thresh test some sort of like a word list attack or brute force attack to get like some sort of valid authentication. I mean, but also fundamentally, if you know your APIs well, you know how to. If you're a developer, these things are much different than what other vendors create as software. It's not that serious. Like, I can create a very quick program that can automatically do that, and fine tune it to the way I want it to be. But knowledge is everything. That's really the whole idea. But in my opinion, cybersecurity tools supported in Kali Linux, they're really for pen testing, penetration testing. And the reason why we call it pen testing and not hacking is because they are a list of tools that are designed to test a system with known vulnerabilities. So, and that is why it's used to harden security rather than try to. So, yeah, it's like it's a tool that supports, like, administration of the system, or a network security tool. Hacking, on the other hand, it's much more. If you are thinking of a way to hack a company or something like that, or hack a system or hack something, it's much more algorithmic software design driven, because the more you understand about the underlying commands that you can write, you can instruct it on a computer, you can develop an exploit very rapidly based on the security vulnerabilities of a company. The way that works is much more different than penetration testing. Let's say I'm a software developer in a company, and I'm working under it. So as I'm doing my everyday work, everyday life work of developing software, you notice things. You notice how connections are created, and it's automatically in the back of your head that you know how this works, because you have the knowledge for it. Because of that, you can come across something that you can automatically register in your head that this can be exploited as a vulnerability, because this is not thought through. And that's how modern day hacks or modern day vulnerabilities are discovered, because a company cannot patch everything. They cannot patch things that they are unaware of, and that's basically, like, when you have knowledge and you're working every day, you can see vulnerabilities in a company that they cannot think of. It's natural. It becomes natural part of your day-to-day life. You notice something that works, you notice something that don't work. You notice things that are possible and not possible, so you can work your way to write instructions to bypass certain commands or certain functions and processes, which you do as a developer anyway. As a software engineer, you find ways to instruct computers to make a process work the way you want it to be designed to work, and you find workarounds to get things completed. So it's natural when you have cybersecurity knowledge. If you have that knowledge of infrastructure, network security, etc., you can fine-tune your skills to develop things the way you see fit. So that is how modern day exploits or vulnerabilities are created. And once you understand things to that level, you realize that no matter how much work blue team operations put in, there will always be vulnerabilities. There will always be vulnerabilities. But what they can do to harden the solution is active mitigation, active monitoring, active tracking. That one red flag gives them the authority to be like, hey, something has to be done right away, and that is active mitigation technique, prevention, defense operations, I guess. And if you're a hacker, you would be like, hey, I want to move in a way where nobody discovers me. Like, hey, I'm not going to do anything which is going to create that red flag, but I know how I can do something in a way that would avoid that and still allow me to write instructions in a way to bypass security. So that's basically what it is. That's basically how things are in the modern world today, and this is taking some time. Okay, so even as this workflow is progressing, you'll see that some of the data has been uploaded. As the workflow progresses, you'll see that some of the data will be uploaded. So some of the information is already going to be available for viewing. As you can see, we found an IP address in Brazil associated to Bank of America. As you can see, there's so many things in here, right? So let's go to contacts. Slightly slower because of the video process running, so let's not mind that. If I want, I can go ahead and filter my data. As you can see, if I put ED, you see Eduardo's name pop up, Emma, Eduardo, Roberto.
Here's what I found on the web.
I don't need you today right now. Okay. So you can see queries filter. You can do multi-layer filters, more than one column at a time, and you can easily filter through your data on the fly. Other functionalities I allow users to do is update data, delete data, add new records, or modify records. You can take a record and start modifying. If you know something in detail, you can go ahead and add that data in. So if you know this person's middle name is like, I don't know, Marie, you know, something like that, you can fill in those information to create more details and, you know, fill in white spaces. If you know where Eduardo live from like social engineering or something, you find out this guy lives in Austin, Texas. When you modify data, when you update data, or let's just rename him, you know, you'll see that the column and the row relation will create blue highlighted text. Don't mind why it's not doing it for these rows, but maybe it's a small bug. Maybe I have to wait until all the data is uploaded, but just mind that for a moment and go ahead. You can delete rows you can delete data that you don't see necessary. Now, if I go ahead and do a whole bunch of modifications, try to navigate to change, it will ask me if I want to undo all my existing changes. None of these changes are persistent unless you click this Save All. If you click Save All, it will prompt you if you want to surely save all your data, save all your changes. So you can create a bulk of changes, multiple deletes, multiple additions, you can add new rows, etc. So my scan has completed. So I can see the result of the scan. Status was successful, and the progression filled in all the way to the end. The status is success. Okay, I go back to my data tables and I get to see all my information. Okay, so we can see now this is a very good module, but I think I hope there was no error, but if there is, I'll go ahead and fix that as well. Let's take a look. Okay, what is the results? No data here. Okay, I think maybe I have a number of runs here, right? So I'll have to take a look into that data. Why didn't upload? But yeah, so this data, this something parsed fail on parsing the data, I believe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no response is created here, no data available. So anyway, so this is like, basically once you have all your data, it's running a little bit slower because of the video. I'm gonna go ahead and fix the dashboard. This is a new tab that I created. Dashboard will basically create a list of all the modules that you ran on Recon engine and the number of time it ran to create this data that you see in front of you. So you can keep track of the modules that are useful in reconnaissance and the modules that are most popular to use and whatnot. So I got an error message there, which is a good thing. I can at least go back and find out why that happened. Okay, so if I'm getting any errors at this particular moment, is most likely because my database connection, my server probably went to sleep. So that's why I cut off the connection. But you get the idea, you get the gist of it. Once we have the task completed, you have all your data available. You can modify data, you can change data, you can save the data, you can do bulk uploads, bulk edits, bulk save functionality. You can modify your report with any kind of personal information or personal recon since you've conducted post reporting. So there's a whole bunch of things going on. So this is what I have developed so far, but there's a whole bunch of list of useful functions that I'm going to have in the future, including that push pin map that is going to be available in this module. Is basically going to allow you to query into those push pins, and is going to generate those push pin templates for you in Google Maps, and it's going to be available to you online or on an application after you dump your scans in or archive your own scans to make that tool very useful. So that's the whole idea of it. I'm going to run some sort of analytics reporting that's going to give some insight to the data, maybe relation of company stock code as well, like the number of scans collected for a particular company and the stock code. And you can see the relation and headlines associated to that company and how their stock has been changing, as in some relation to the amount of cyber attacks that or cyber security news that's been pros and cons, affected a company's growth, etc. So there's a whole bunch of potential that you can create with this tool, and I'm trying to find that maximum potential. Going back into the other modules, you see the potential for other kind of data that can be collected, census data, blah blah blah, etc. The census data analytics tool is currently under development. I've worked quite a bit on it. Basically, creating a template of how I can model the census API data is very complicated, but I boiled it down into something programmatic that can be created. So basically, I programmatically, dynamically create a census URL to locate and find a report, and I'll basically allow users to select, drop down reports that they want to look at, what year they want to look at, and they filter through the census data as they see fit without doing the complexities of trying to search through these reports. And basically, this is a test URL that I generated from the census data programmatically, and you can see all the data that you get back in this particular report from a dynamically generated URL for census. So you can see all these reports collected from census.gov, and trust me, you don't want to have to you don't want to look into this stuff because this is very pain in the ass. So you can go into census and look through their surveys, their information, blah blah blah. But for developers, if you want to direct access their data, you can see how complicated their data is. So basically, what I've done is I modeled this entire data into a format that I can dynamically query into. So this is much more different than just copy and pasting this and putting into a Pojo parsing template. No, that's not what I've done here, but basically I've created a template for how census data work, and I created like a regex string pattern that can dynamically query into census data. So this is much more difficult programmatically, and this I've basically designed the template on my own. There's no pattern other than like me trying to figure out how I can model a URL, replace a string expression with a value, stuff like that, to create a URL that is valid in census, and try to create that pattern basically. So I called it endpoint API, and I model third-party API data, etc. So you can see, like, you know, the fields, vintage data set, I put it in brackets. Question mark means may not be required. It could be nullable. Bracket means that replace that expression with the data set, replace that expression with the vintage. As you can see here, data, let's go into, for example, vintage data sets. First query has to be through vintage and data set. You see vintage 1999, data set non-EMP. So 1999, no EMP. So that's the first layer. Now you isolated the report. If I go back, for example, and work from the base URI, you have more than one report, right? You have more than one report. If you append this expression in, you isolated the report into one report. Now you're working with only one report. Okay. So so now the next values of this expression is going to be get a column, list of columns, for a fib value in an array of, you know, in an int, which is like an integer, I believe. So so get like an idea, you know, you want to get the columns link. You have to find the list of columns. In order to find the list of columns, I believe you have to go to like samples of JSON. The census data is very difficult to look up. But you see the objects like here: get value, tabular predicates, fips, expression. So you put in those values, and you get to find what kind of things you're looking for. I believe get value net stab something, and fips expression name value US. And I think you need a code for in expression in state 0, 1. So state value has to be a digit, I guess. Okay, so something like that. I forgot exactly how it runs. But you can go ahead and work your way through finding this kind of stuff, like but again, like, you know, the values are located, the options that you can play for so maybe some of the data is obsolete, maybe it's old. So maybe some of them were removed. And some of the ways you can build the URLs is determined by some of these attributes, you know. So say 1999 non-employer statistics, description of the report. blah blah blah. And yeah, so this is just a basic example. Okay, so yeah, like, let me. I just want to I'm really stubborn into figuring stuff out. So I'm like, okay. So this is what I've been doing basically. I've been trying to really dig through and understand the reports and how to build these reports and how to query the data. So I designed like a template for the reports to work. I forgot because it's been so long how I got this report, but I basically generated this URL and tested to see if my API builder will build that valid URL. So it was able to dynamically inject and build that URL. So this is PDB. I'm trying to understand how it works exactly. We have PDB. So this is a data set. So a vintage data set PDB. Non-employee, non-emp data set. So that's what it was, PDB here. Then we have block group query. Okay, block group query, right? Block group. Okay, so query, that's what it was. Okay, so I think in here you need a non-employee query, and then you can work through some of those things that I posted. So something like that, you can build the entire query of a census and get states, get the value, etc. So I think I will go into the examples of this report. So we have block group, get value, states, total pop, country name, county name. So that's what I've done. Get state, total pop, population, county name. So that's what created this expression. Basically, I looped into finding all of this and appended this data in get, and then you have a FIPS value for block group in state. So then you can do for a block group, which is the name of the option of FIPS, block group in reference states. So that's how it builds in states 01, in county 001. This goes by a code. So basically I will extract all the country values, code values, etc., and allow users to select value and dynamically generate the data for this report basically. And once you have that, you will be able to filter into census and obtain the data into a format structure, and creating reports and data based on different counties, different states and stuff like that. And that data can be used, like this is the column name state, total population in the state per county in a block group. So this stuff right here then boils down the total population of the state broken down into different counties, and then you can be like, oh, plug in this zip code and find the average income of individuals in this county, blah blah blah, or stuff like that, average education level, stuff like that. So you get into the idea of how much data you can mine with HydraBlend potentially. So it's quite complex. So thank you for tuning in, and yeah, I enjoyed making this long video. I'm lying. I hate this shit. But I think it's meaningful. I think it's has potential. I think it's can be valuable, although it's very complicated.